The crystal formations caught the light in ways that hurt David Reed's eyes. Throwing rainbows across the cavern walls like scattered jewels, David had been exploring alien worlds for 12 years. But nothing had prepared him for the beauty of Haven's Edge. The planet sparkled with mineral deposits that made every mountain look like it was carved from precious stones. Amy Foster adjusted her scanner and frowned at the readings. Her baby son Alex gurgled happily in the carrier strapped to her chest, completely unaware that his mother was discovering something that would change everything for humanity. The energy signatures coming from deep within the mountain were unlike anything in their databases. "David, you need to see this." Amy's voice echoed strangely in the crystal chamber. "These readings suggest massive life forms, but they're not showing up on our heat sensors." David joined her at the edge of what looked like a natural staircase carved into the living rock. Each step was perfectly smooth, worn by countless years of something very large moving up and down. The air hummed with a sound so low they felt it in their bones rather than heard it. Baby Alex stopped gurgling and tilted his head, as if listening to something his parents couldn't. Detect his tiny hands reach toward the deeper caverns, fingers opening and closing like he was trying to grab invisible threads in the air. "The harmonics are affecting him," Amy whispered, checking her son's vital signs on her wrist display. "His brain patterns are changing, but not in a bad way. It's like he's trying to understand something." They descended deeper into the mountain, following passages that grew wider with each turn. The walls showed signs of deliberate shaping, curved and polished until they gleamed like mirrors. Soon the passages became so large that their lights couldn't reach the ceiling. That's when they heard it. A sound like singing mountains. Deep and resonant and filled with intelligence, David grabbed Amy's arm as shadows moved in the darkness ahead. Shadows that were far too large to be anything they had encountered before. The first Titan emerged from the depths slowly, as if aware that sudden movements might terrify the tiny humans. Her scales shifted color from deep blue to silver as she moved, each one the size of a dinner plate. Her head alone was larger than their entire exploration vehicle. Amy's scanner went, wild with readings, while baby Alex made soft cooing sounds, completely unafraid. The Titan's massive eyes, each one bigger than a human head, focused on the baby with what looked unmistakably like curiosity. "Small warm ones." The voice came through, their translation devices, though the original sound seemed to come from the entire cavern. "You carry new life, you are parents." David found his voice first. "Yes, we're explorers from the human colony. We didn't know anyone lived here. We mean no harm." The Titan's head tilted, a gesture that seemed familiar despite her immense size. "I am called matriarch by my kind. We have watched your settlement grow. You build where our young ones sleep." More Titans emerged from the shadows, a family group that moved with surprising grace for creatures so massive the smallest adult was still 3 times the size of their exploration vehicle. But they all showed the same gentle curiosity about the humans. "Your young ones sleep near our colony?" Amy stepped forward, her scientist's curiosity overriding her caution. "We had no idea there were no energy signatures in our scans." Titan young, sleep deep. The matriarch's harmonics carried sadness. "This one sleeps in shell still, first new shell, in 100 turnings of seasons, most precious of all gifts." She gestured with one massive forearm toward a passage that glowed with soft inner light. "Come, small warm ones. See what your buildings rest above." They followed the Titans deeper into the mountain, baby Alex babbling happily as if he belonged here. The passage opened into a chamber so vast it had its own weather system. Mist drifted between crystalline formations that pulsed with bioluminescent light in the center of the chamber. Nestled in a bed of the finest crystal formations lay an egg that defied belief. It was easily the size of a small building, its surface covered in patterns that shifted and changed like living art. The entire chamber resonated with harmonics that made their bones tingle. "She will wake soon." The matriarch's voice carried both joy and worry. "But your settlement has changed the mineral flow in the deep places. The shell grows weak without proper nourishment." Amy ran her scanners over the egg and gasped at the readings. "The mineral composition is incredibly complex. It's not just an eggshell, it's like a living ecosystem. The baby inside is already interacting with the environment. Titans are guardians of worlds. Another adult spoke up, her scales a deep green color. We shape the deep places, guide the mineral flows, keep the balance. Young ones learn these ways in the shell time. David realized the magnitude of what they were seeing. Our colonies, mining operations must be disrupting the natural systems you depend on. Not angry, small warm one. The matriarch moved closer, her massive head lowering until she was eye level with them. Understand need for homes, for safe places to raise young, but need balance. Need harmony between all who live. Baby Alex reached out toward the massive creature making happy sounds. Amy tensed, ready to pull him back, but the matriarch moved with incredible delicacy. Her scales shifted to match the soft colors of Alex's blanket, and she hummed at a frequency that made the baby laugh. Your small one hears the deep songs. The matriarch's eyes showed wonder. Most small, warm ones cannot. Few adults can. This one is special. Amy felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cavern. Temperature. What do you mean he can hear the songs, the harmonics that flow through all living things? Your small one's mind is open to them like flower to sunlight. Very rare gift. Even among titans, few hear all the songs. As if responding to the conversation, Alex began making soft sounds that almost matched the harmonics filling the chamber. His tiny voice couldn't produce the deep tones, but the pattern was unmistakable. The gathered titans all focused on the baby, their scales shifting to brighter colors. He tries to speak with us. The green-scaled titan sounded amazed. Small warm one learns our tongue. Amy's medical training kicked in as she noticed changes in Alex's vital signs. His brain activity was increasing, but in patterns she'd never seen before. He's adapting somehow. His neural pathways are forming new connections. Deep songs teach as well as communicate. The matriarch explained, your young one learns what others cannot. This is gift beyond measure. David saw opportunity in crisis. Our colony needs to coexist with your people. We can relocate the mining operations, adjust our settlement boundaries, but we need guidance, need to understand how to live here without causing harm. The matriarch's scales shimmered through the full spectrum of colors as she considered. Humans learn quickly, adapt well. This is known, but harmony takes time, takes trust, takes understanding of deep ways. She gestured toward her precious egg. My grandchild wakes soon. We'll need guidance, need teaching, but also we'll need protected spaces, need mineral flows. Restored your people and mine must find balance before she breaks shell. Amy hugged Alex closer as she felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. They had come to explore a mountain and discovered they were standing on the nursery of an ancient, intelligent species. The future of both their peoples might depend on what happened next. Will help. Amy said simply, whatever it takes to find that balance will help. The matriarch's harmonics shifted to something that sounded almost like approval. Then we begin small steps, careful steps. But we begin. 3 weeks had passed since the discovery changed everything, and Amy Foster couldn't sleep. Alex had been getting sicker despite everything the colony's medical bay could do. His tiny body was fighting something their equipment couldn't identify, and she was losing him one breath at a time. The colony's meeting hall buzzed with tension as 200 settlers argued about their impossible situation. Commander Sam Parker stood at the podium, his face grim as he addressed the crowd. We cannot risk our children based on alien promises, he declared. These creatures could crush us without even noticing. Amy held Alex closer, feeling how light he had become in just days. His breathing was shallow and irregular, and the medical readings showed his condition worsening by the hour. Dr. Martinez had run every test possible, but whatever was affecting Alex seemed to be beyond human medical understanding. The matriarch has offered a solution. David Reed's voice carried over the crowd's murmurs. Her people have knowledge of biological systems that spans thousands of years. If there's any chance to save Alex, this is it. Sam Parker's expression hardened. You're talking about putting a human infant next to an unknown alien creature. The baby dragon might be small by their standards, but it's still the size of a large predator. What happens when it gets hungry? The crowd erupted in worried voices. Parents pulled their own children closer, imagining the worst. Mary Chen, whose daughter was the same age as Alex, stood up. How do we know this isn't some kind of trap? Maybe they want to study our children, experiment on them. Amy stood slowly, Alex limp in her arms. Because I watched that creature, the matriarch, look at my son with the same expression I see in every parent's face in this room. Her voice cracked. She knows what it means to love a child. She knows what it means to fear losing them. The meeting continued for hours with voices raised in fear and desperation. Some colonists wanted to evacuate immediately, convinced the Titans represented an existential threat. Others argued for giving the Alliance a chance. But they were clearly outnumbered. Through it all, Alex grew weaker. Amy could feel his life slipping away despite every effort to save him. The colony's best medical equipment was useless against whatever was attacking his system. She faced the horrible certainty that traditional medicine had failed her son. During a break in the arguments, Amy carried Alex outside where she could think clearly. The night sky of Haven's Edge painted everything in soft purple light, and she could hear the distant harmonics rising from the mountain. The sounds were barely audible to human ears, but they made Alex stir slightly in her arms. He responds to their songs. David joined her on the steps. Even now, even as sick as he is, he still tries to listen. Amy nodded, tears streaming down her face. It's the only time he seems peaceful. When he hears their harmonics, his vital signs stabilize just a little. It's like he's trying to connect with something we can't understand. The matriarch sent a message today. David's voice was quiet. She says the baby dragon hatched 3 days ago. The healing harmonics are at their strongest during the first months of life. If we're going to try this, it has to be soon. The impossible decision loomed before them. Risk Alex's life on an unprecedented interspecies medical treatment, or watch him die slowly while human medicine proved helpless. There were no guarantees either way, only hope and terror in equal measure. The next morning brought a development that changed everything. The matriarch herself came to the colony's perimeter, moving slowly and carefully to avoid damaging anything. Her massive form cast shadows across the settlement as she approached the meeting hall. Small warm ones. Her harmonics carried through the colony's speakers. I bring proof of my promise, my own life force connected to yours. If harm comes to your small one, I will not survive. This is the way of deepest oaths among my people. The crowd fell silent as they watched the ancient creature lower her massive head to the ground. The gesture was unmistakably one of submission, of putting herself at their mercy. Sam Parker stared in disbelief. She's offering her life as guarantee. Amy stepped forward, Alex in her arms. You would die if my son was hurt? That's what you're promising? Bonding of life forces is sacred among Titans. The matriarch's eyes focused on the sick baby. Cannot be broken or taken back. If your small one suffers harm while in our care, my spirit will leave my body. This is law older than mountains, stronger than stone. The demonstration of trust stunned the colonists into silence. Even Sam Parker seemed shaken by the magnitude of what was being offered. No species would risk their leader for anything but the most crucial reasons, he admitted quietly. Dr. Martinez pushed through the crowd, his medical scanner in hand. Amy, Alex's condition is deteriorating faster than before. We might have hours, not days, if there's any chance. This could work. The decision crystallized in Amy's mind with painful clarity. Her son was dying, and she had been offered the only hope available. The risk was enormous, but the alternative was certain death. She looked at the matriarch's ancient eyes and saw something that transcended species barriers, the fierce protectiveness of a grandmother. Willing to sacrifice everything for a child, I'll do it. Amy's voice was barely a whisper. I'll bring Alex to your people. Sam Parker stepped forward. I can't authorize this officially, It goes against every safety protocol we have, but... He looked. At the dying baby in Amy's arms. I won't stop you either. The matriarch's scales shifted to brilliant gold as she heard Amy's decision. Preparation begins immediately. Safe space built in nursery chamber. Medicine tools brought for your comfort. Small warm one will be watched by all, protected by all. The matriarch prepared to leave. She paused and looked back at the gathered humans. Your people show courage beyond understanding to trust strange ones with most precious gift. Titans will remember this, will honor this. Your small one will be safe as our own. The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation. Amy packed medical equipment and supplies for an extended stay in the mountain. David organized communication equipment to maintain contact. With the colony, Dr. Martinez provided detailed instructions for monitoring Alex's condition, but nothing could prepare Amy for her first sight of the baby dragon. The creature was indeed the size of a large dog, but there the similarities ended. Her scales shimmered with colors that had no names, shifting from deep purple to brilliant silver. As she moved, her eyes held an intelligence that was both alien and somehow familiar. The baby dragon was currently curled up next to her massive mother, making soft chirping sounds that harmonized with the cavern's natural acoustics. When she saw Amy approaching with Alex, she tilted her head in curiosity, her harmonics changing to match the baby's breathing pattern. She knows he's sick. The matriarch explained, young titans naturally respond to distress in other young ones. She will try to help him heal. Amy settled into the prepared area, a comfortable space with human furnishings surrounded by the alien beauty of the Titan nursery. Alex's breathing was labored, his skin pale and clammy, but as the baby dragon began to hum softly, his vital signs showed the first improvement in days. The healing had begun, but Amy couldn't shake the fear that they were attempting something that had never been tried before. The stakes couldn't be higher. Her son's life, the matriarch's oath, and the future relationship between two species all depended on whether love and trust could overcome the vast differences between their kinds. As she watched Alex's chest rise and fall more steadily, Amy allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, they had found a miracle in the most unlikely of places. Baby dragon Shimmer had been awake for 6 straight days, and Amy could see the exhaustion in the young creature's movements. The miraculous healing was working. Alex's vital signs had stabilized and even shown improvement. But something was wrong with their tiny savior. Amy watched from her monitoring station as Shimmer struggled to keep her enormous eyes open. The baby dragon's harmonics had grown weaker over the past day, and her usual playful chirping had been replaced by soft, tired sounds that broke Amy's heart. She fights the deep sleep for your small one. The matriarch's voice carried both pride and concern. Young titans must enter the growing sleep, but she refuses to leave her new friend. Alex lay peacefully in his specially designed crib, his breathing steady for the first time in weeks. The bioharmonic readings showed that Shimmer's songs had not only stabilized his condition, but were actively repairing whatever had been attacking his system. However, the cost to Shimmer was becoming obvious. Dr. Martinez's voice crackled through the communication system. Amy, Alex's improvement is remarkable. His cellular regeneration is accelerating beyond anything we've seen. But what about the dragon? She looks exhausted in the video feeds. Amy looked at Shimmer, who was currently curled up as close as possible to Alex's crib without actually touching it. The baby dragon's scales had lost some of their brilliant luster, and her harmonics came in irregular bursts instead of the steady rhythm that had characterized her earlier efforts. The growing sleep cannot be delayed much longer. Another adult titan joined the conversation, her scales a deep amber color. Young ones who miss the growing time suffer permanent damage, never fully mature, never learn the deep songs properly. The impossible choice was becoming clear. Alex needed Shimmer's harmonics to continue healing, but Shimmer needed her natural sleep cycle to develop properly. Amy faced the horrible realization that saving her son might cripple the young dragon permanently. How long does the growing sleep last? Amy asked, though she dreaded the answer. Many turnings of days and nights. The matriarch's harmonics carried ancient sadness. Young ones sleep while their minds grow, while their song knowledge develops. During this time, they cannot wake, cannot sing, cannot help heal. Amy felt her heart breaking as she understood the full implications. If Shimmer entered her growing sleep, Alex would lose the bioharmonic support that was keeping him alive. But if Shimmer continued to fight her natural cycle, she might never develop properly. The baby dragon seemed to sense the emotional turmoil around her. She chirped softly and moved closer to Alex's crib, her harmonics taking on a protective quality that needed no translation. She was choosing Alex's life over her own development, and everyone in the cavern understood what that meant. There has to be another way. Amy's voice was desperate. Some way to help Alex that doesn't require Shimmer to sacrifice her future. The gathered titans consulted among themselves, their deep harmonics creating a symphony of ancient wisdom and concern. Finally, the matriarch spoke. In old stories, young ones shared growing sleep with clutchmates. When one was weak, others would sing in dreams. But these are only stories, not tried ways. David's voice came through the communicator. Amy, we're working on artificial harmonic generators here in the colony. The engineering team thinks they might be able to replicate Shimmer's frequencies. Artificial songs lack the life essence. The amber-scaled titan interjected, healing comes not just from sound, but from connection. From caring young ones heal because other young ones sing with love. Amy watched Alex sleep peacefully while Shimmer fought to stay awake, and a desperate idea began to form. What if there were other young ones, other babies, who could somehow help maintain the connection while Shimmer sleeps? The matriarch's eyes brightened with interest. Other small warm ones? Your species has more young ones who might learn the songs? Some of the other families have babies. Amy's mind raced through possibilities. If the bioharmonics are beneficial rather than harmful, maybe other parents would be willing to bring their children. Maybe they could help somehow. Dr. Martinez's excited voice interrupted her thoughts. Amy, that's brilliant. If the harmonics are actually beneficial to human development, other parents might volunteer. We could create a support network for Alex while studying the effects on multiple subjects. The idea gained momentum quickly. David contacted families with young children, explaining the situation and the potential benefit. Several parents expressed interest, especially when they learned that exposure to Titan harmonics seemed to enhance cognitive development rather than cause harm within hours. 5 more families had volunteered their babies for what Dr. Martinez dubbed the nursery experiment. Parents brought sleeping bags and supplies, turning the Titan nursery into an unprecedented interspecies child care center. The babies ranged in age from Alex's 6 months to toddler Emma, who could already walk. They all responded positively to Shimmer's harmonics, with their vital signs showing improved stability, and their brain patterns indicating enhanced neural development. Shimmer herself seemed delighted by the addition of more young ones. Her exhaustion lifted temporarily as she moved among the human babies, chirping gently to each one. Her harmonics took on new complexity as she tried to accommodate multiple young ones with different needs. She tries to sing for all of them. The matriarch observed with wonder. Young titans usually focus on one clutchmate, but she includes all your small ones in her songs. This is behavior we have never seen. The arrangement worked beautifully for several days. The human babies thrived under Shimmer's care, while the baby dragon seemed energized by having so many young ones to protect. However, the fundamental problem remained. Shimmer still needed her growing sleep, and now 6 human babies depended on her songs. Amy found herself bonding with the other parents as they shared the unprecedented experience of raising their children alongside an alien creature. Sarah, whose baby Tom was the youngest after Alex, expressed what they all felt. I never imagined something like this was possible. My son is developing faster than any of the medical predictions. The crisis came suddenly. Shimmer collapsed during what should have been her playful morning routine, her exhaustion finally overwhelming her instinctive protectiveness. The baby dragon's harmonics stopped abruptly, and all 6 human babies immediately began showing signs of distress. She cannot fight nature any longer. The matriarch's voice carried desperate urgency. Growing sleep must begin now, or permanent damage will result. But your small ones. Amy looked At Alex, who was already starting to show signs of relapse without Shimmer's support, the other babies were crying, as if they sensed something important was missing. The impossible choice had arrived. Save Shimmer's future development or watch 6 human babies suffer. Wait. Amy's scientist mind kicked into overdrive. When she collapses like this, she's still breathing, still alive. What if the growing sleep isn't complete unconsciousness? What if she can still produce some harmonics even while sleeping? The matriarch tilted her massive head thoughtfully. Growing sleep is deep, but not death. Perhaps some small songs remain, dreams of singing rather than true songs. As if responding to their conversation, Shimmer's unconscious form began to emit very faint harmonics, barely detectable even with their sensitive equipment. The sounds were different from her wake-time songs, softer and more rhythmic, like a lullaby made of living sound. Alex's distress began to ease slightly, though not as dramatically as before. The other babies also seemed to sense the change, their crying becoming less frantic. They might have found their miracle. Shimmer could enter her growing sleep while still providing some beneficial harmonics, but Amy knew it wasn't enough. The faint sleep songs might stabilize the babies temporarily, but they wouldn't provide the active healing that Alex still needed. She faced the horrible realization that they had only bought time, not found a solution. As Shimmer settled deeper into her growing sleep, Amy held Alex close and wondered if their unprecedented alliance would be enough to save everyone she had come to love. The next few weeks would test the bonds between species in ways no one had ever imagined. Engineer Pete Williams hadn't slept in 36 hours, but his hands remained steady as he adjusted the harmonic generator's frequency calibrations. The machine hummed with artificial life, trying desperately to replicate the complex bioharmonics that sleeping Shimmer could no longer provide at full strength. Amy watched from across the laboratory cave as Pete and his team worked frantically on their third prototype. The previous 2 attempts had produced harsh, mechanical sounds that made the babies cry rather than soothing them. This version was different, smoother, more organic, but still lacking something essential. The mathematical patterns are perfect. Dr. Lisa Wong shook her head in frustration as she studied the harmonic analysis. We're matching Shimmer's frequencies exactly, but the babies aren't responding the same way. Baby Alex lay in his monitoring crib, stable, but not improving. His vital signs had plateaued since Shimmer entered her growing sleep 3 days ago. The faint dream songs from the sleeping dragon were enough to prevent immediate relapse, but not enough to continue the healing process. Sarah bounced her son Tom gently, trying to comfort him as he fussed. The other babies were similarly restless, as if they could sense that something important was missing from their environment. It's like they know the difference between real and artificial, she murmured. Amy studied the sleeping form of Shimmer, curled in her crystal nest like a living jewel. The baby dragon's scales still shifted colors slowly, and her breathing created very soft harmonics that their equipment could barely detect. Pete, what if the issue isn't the sound itself? What if it's the intent behind it? Pete looked up from his work, exhaustion clear in his eyes. Intent? You mean like emotional content? Think about it. Amy's voice grew excited as the idea developed. Shimmer doesn't just produce frequencies. She responds to the baby's needs. She modulates her songs based on what each child requires. It's not just sound, it's communication. Dr. Beth Connor, the child psychologist who had joined them from the colony, nodded thoughtfully. Amy might be onto something. The babies formed emotional bonds with Shimmer over the past weeks. They trust her, feel safe with her. A machine can't replicate that connection. The conversation was interrupted by urgent beeping from Alex's medical monitors. His condition was deteriorating again, faster than before. Amy rushed to his side, checking his vital signs with growing alarm. He's rejecting the artificial harmonics. They're actually making him worse. Pete immediately shut down the generator, plunging the cavern into an eerie silence broken only by the gentle sounds of Shimmer's sleep breathing. The baby's distress increased without even the mechanical harmonics to provide some comfort. We need a different approach, David's voice came through the communicator from the colony. The engineering solution isn't working. What other options do we have? Amy looked around at the 6 babies and their worried parents, then at the sleeping dragon who had risked everything to help them. An idea began forming, crazy and desperate, but possibly their only hope. What if the answer isn't replacing Shimmer's songs? What if it's amplifying what she can still provide? Amplifying dream songs. The matriarch's harmonics carried interest. Explain this thought, small warm one. Shimmer is still producing harmonics, just very faint ones. Amy's excitement grew as she worked through the concept. Instead of trying to create artificial songs, what if we could boost her natural sleep songs? Make them strong enough to help the babies while still allowing her to complete her growing sleep. Pete's engineer mind immediately engaged with the problem. Bioharmonic amplification. That's actually possible. We'd need to create a resonance chamber around her sleeping area, something that could capture and amplify her natural frequencies without disturbing her sleep. The Titans consulted among themselves in deep, rumbling harmonics. Finally, the matriarch spoke. This has never been attempted, but it does not violate the natural order. Young one still sings her own songs, just louder. Work began immediately on the new approach. Pete's team designed a crystalline resonance chamber that would surround Shimmer's sleeping area. The Titans provided guidance on crystal formations that naturally amplified bioharmonics, sharing knowledge that had been accumulated over millennia. The construction required incredible precision. Any vibration that might wake Shimmer could damage her development permanently, but the amplification system had to be powerful enough to strengthen her faint sleep songs. The human engineers worked alongside Titan advisors, creating something that neither species could have built alone. Amy monitored Alex constantly during the construction. His condition continued to worsen, despite the faint dream songs still reaching him. Time was running out, and she found herself praying to whatever forces governed the universe that their desperate plan would work. The resonance chamber is complete, Pete announced after 18 hours of continuous work. But we won't know if it works until we activate it. And we only get one chance if we wake Shimmer. We lose everything. The moment of truth arrived with painful tension. Amy held Alex close while the other parents gathered their babies. The Titans maintained absolute silence as Pete initiated the amplification sequence. At first, nothing seemed different. Then, gradually, Shimmer's sleep songs began to strengthen. The faint harmonics that had barely registered on their equipment grew clearer and more complex. The sleeping dragon's natural rhythms expanded to fill the entire cavern with gentle, living sound. Alex's vital signs immediately began to improve. His breathing steadied, his color returned to normal, and for the first time in days he seemed truly peaceful. The other babies also responded positively, their distress fading as the familiar bioharmonics washed over them. It's working. Amy's voice broke with relief. She's still asleep, but her songs are strong enough now. The amplification isn't waking her. The matriarch's scales shimmered with colors that indicated joy and amazement. Young one sings in dreams now, sings for all to hear. This is gift beyond understanding. Human cleverness makes possible what nature alone could not. But even as they celebrated the success, Amy noticed something unexpected in the bioharmonic readings. The amplified sleep songs were different from Shimmer's wake-time harmonics, deeper, more primal, carrying frequencies that seemed to resonate with something fundamental in human biology. These patterns are incredible. Dr. Wong studied the new readings with wonder. The sleep songs are actually more beneficial than her conscious harmonics. They're triggering healing responses we didn't even know were possible. Baby Emma, the oldest of the children at 18 months, began making soft sounds that almost matched the amplified harmonics. She couldn't reproduce the complex frequencies, but she was clearly trying to participate in the songs. She learns even from sleep songs. The amber-scaled Titan observed with amazement. Small warm ones adapt faster than expected, learn what should take years of training. Sarah noticed that her son Tom was also attempting to match the harmonics, his baby babbling taking on rhythmic qualities that resembled the Titan songs. They're all trying to sing along. It's like the harmonics are teaching them something. Amy realized they had stumbled onto something far more significant than just a medical treatment. The amplified sleep songs weren't just healing Alex. They were fundamentally changing how all the human babies developed, giving them abilities that no human had ever possessed. The children are becoming bridges, Amy whispered in wonder. They're learning to communicate in ways that span species. They might be the first humans who can truly understand Titan songs. Pete's amplification system had done more than save Alex's life. It had opened a door to possibilities that neither species had imagined. The sleeping dragon's dreams were teaching human babies to speak in harmonics that connected all living things as Shimmer slept peacefully in her crystal chamber, surrounded by the gentle sounds of human babies learning to sing in alien tongues. Amy felt hope blooming in her chest. They hadn't just found a solution to their immediate crisis. They had discovered the foundation for a future neither species could build alone. 12 days into Shimmer's growing sleep, Amy woke to silence, the kind of absolute quiet that made her heart race with terror. The bioharmonic amplifiers had been humming constantly for nearly 2 weeks, filling the cavern with Shimmer's strengthened sleep songs. Now they registered nothing but baseline energy readings. Amy rushed to Alex's crib, her bare feet slipping on the smooth crystal floor. Her son's breathing was already becoming labored, his peaceful sleep disturbed by whatever had caused the harmonics to stop. The other babies were beginning to stir restlessly, sensing the absence of their constant harmonic companion. Pete, what's happening with the amplifiers? Amy's voice cracked as she checked Alex's vital signs. The numbers were declining rapidly. Faster than they had during previous interruptions, Pete emerged from behind the amplification equipment, his face grim. The system is working perfectly. It's Shimmer. She's entered a deeper phase of her growing sleep. Her bioharmonic output has dropped below detectable levels. The matriarch moved closer to her sleeping grandchild, her massive head lowering until she was almost touching the crystal chamber. This is the deepest part of growing sleep, she explained quietly. When young ones' minds travel far into dream knowledge, learning the ancient songs that connect all life. Dr. Martinez's voice came through the communicator with barely controlled panic. Amy, Alex's readings are crashing. We're seeing the same patterns from before he was brought to the Titans. He's going into full relapse. Amy lifted Alex from his crib, feeling how his small body had already begun to lose the strength it had gained. His skin was growing pale, and his breathing required visible effort. One by one, the other babies began crying as their systems responded to the loss of harmonic support. How long does this deep phase last? Sarah asked while trying to comfort Tom, whose cries had taken on a desperate quality that cut through everyone's hearts. Cannot say with certainty. The matriarch's harmonics carried ancient sadness. Each young one dreams differently. Some wake. In days, others require full cycle of seasons. This cannot be predicted or controlled. Amy felt the familiar crushing weight of impossible choices. Alex might not survive even a few days without harmonic support, let alone weeks or months. The other babies were also showing signs of distress, their development apparently more dependent on Shimmer's songs than anyone had realized. There has to be something. David's voice was desperate as he watched the crisis unfold through the video feeds, some way to reach her in her sleep, to ask for help. Deep sleep cannot be disturbed without permanent damage. The amber-scaled Titan's voice was firm. Young ones who are awakened during mind journeys never learn the deep songs, never develop proper connection to life harmonics. As the situation grew more desperate, something unexpected happened. Baby Emma, who had been trying to mimic Shimmer's harmonics for days, began making sounds that were almost recognizable as Titan frequencies. Her 18-month-old voice couldn't produce the deep tones, but the patterns were unmistakably similar to the sleep songs they had lost. The other babies seemed to respond. To Emma's attempts, their crying took on rhythmic qualities as if they were trying to support her efforts. Tom, despite being younger, began producing sounds that harmonized with Emma's primitive songs. They remember the patterns. Amy realized with growing amazement. They learned Shimmer's sleep songs well enough to try reproducing them. Pete quickly adjusted his monitoring equipment to analyze the baby's vocalizations. The frequency patterns are crude but recognizable. They're actually attempting to recreate the bioharmonic sequences they've been exposed to. But even as hope flickered, reality remained harsh. The baby's attempts at Titan songs were touching but far too weak to provide the healing support that Alex desperately needed. His condition continued to deteriorate despite their brave efforts. Then something extraordinary occurred as the human babies struggled to produce their remembered version of Shimmer's songs. The sleeping dragon stirred slightly in her crystal chamber. Her scales brightened momentarily, and the amplifiers detected a brief pulse of harmonics. She responds to their calls. The matriarch's voice carried wonder. Even in deepest sleep, she hears young ones in distress. This has never been recorded in our histories. Amy watched in amazement as the pattern repeated. Each time the babies cried in their learned harmonic patterns, Shimmer's sleeping form would emit a brief response. The interactions were faint and irregular, but they were definitely real. It's like they're calling to her in her dreams, Sarah whispered as she encouraged Tom to continue his harmonic babbling. And somehow, some part of her is answering. Dr. Connor studied the interaction with professional fascination. This suggests that the bond formed between Shimmer and the babies goes deeper than conscious awareness. It's operating on an instinctual level that transcends sleep states. The realization led to a desperate strategy. Amy and the other parents began encouraging their babies to vocalize more, helping them attempt the harmonic patterns they had learned. The older children, like Emma, could produce recognizable approximations, while the younger ones contributed emotional urgency that seemed to carry across species barriers. Pete worked frantically to amplify the babies' calls, hoping to make them strong enough to reach deeper into Shimmer's sleeping consciousness. The equipment wasn't designed for human vocalizations, but he managed to boost their harmonic attempts until they filled the cavern. The results were inconsistent, but encouraging. Shimmer's responses became slightly more frequent and stronger, providing brief moments of healing harmonics that helped stabilize Alex's condition. It wasn't enough for full recovery, but it kept him alive while they searched for better solutions. The young ones teach each other, the matriarch observed as she watched human babies learning Titan communication through pure instinct. Your small ones adapt faster than thought possible. Learn what takes our young ones years to master. Amy realized they had stumbled onto something unprecedented. The human babies weren't just receiving help from Shimmer. They were actively participating in an interspecies communication network that operated even during sleep. The bonds formed between the children transcended the normal limitations of consciousness. Emma's getting better at it, Sarah noticed as her daughter's harmonic attempts became more sophisticated. She's actually learning to speak their language. The discovery gave Amy hope even as Alex's condition remained critical. If the babies could continue developing their harmonic abilities, they might eventually be able to provide significant support for each other. The network of young voices calling across species barriers might become strong enough to sustain them all. But time was running short, and Alex needed more help than baby voices could provide. Amy held her son close as he struggled to breathe, listening to the sound of human children learning to sing in alien tongues, while their dragon friend dreamed in depths no one could reach. Test of their unprecedented alliance was far from over, but the bonds between species were proving stronger than anyone had dared to hope. The question remained whether love and determination would be enough to carry them through the darkest hours of their shared crisis. 6 weeks had passed since Shimmer entered her growing sleep, and the cavern had transformed into something no one could have imagined. The human babies had created their own harmonic network, their voices weaving together in patterns that grew more sophisticated each day. Amy sat beside Alex's crib, marveling at how much her son had changed. He was not only healthy but developing in ways that amazed the medical team. His cognitive abilities had advanced far beyond normal milestones, and he could now produce recognizable Titan harmonic sequences that actually evoked responses from the sleeping Shimmer baby. Emma had become the unofficial leader of the children's choir. Her 18-month-old voice could now create complex harmonics that rivaled young Titan songs. The other babies followed her lead, creating a support network that had not only kept them all healthy, but had accelerated their development in unprecedented ways. Listen to that. Dr. Connor recorded the children's latest harmonic session with wonder. They're not just mimicking Shimmer's patterns anymore, they're creating new ones. Original compositions that blend human emotional expression with Titan bioharmonic principles. The breakthrough had come gradually. As the babies learned to communicate in harmonics, their combined voices had grown strong enough to reach deeper into Shimmer's sleeping consciousness. Their calls triggered increasingly powerful responses from the sleeping dragon, creating a feedback loop that sustained them all. Pete's amplification system had evolved along with the children. He now focused on boosting their own harmonic abilities, rather than just strengthening Shimmer's sleep songs. The equipment had become a translator and amplifier for the first human-Titan communication network. She's waking up. The matriarch's excited harmonics filled the cavern as Shimmer began to stir in her crystal chamber. Growing sleep ends, and she returns to us. Amy held her breath as the baby dragon slowly opened her massive eyes. The creature that emerged from her developmental sleep was noticeably larger, now the size of a small horse rather than a large dog. Her scales had gained new depth and complexity, shifting through colors that seemed to capture light itself. But the most remarkable change was in Shimmer's voice. When she first vocalized upon waking, her harmonics had gained incredible richness and complexity. The growing sleep had deepened her natural abilities, while the constant interaction with human babies had taught her new patterns of communication. Alex reached toward Shimmer with obvious joy, making harmonic sounds that the dragon immediately recognized and responded to. Their reunion was a symphony of interspecies communication that brought tears to Amy's eyes. She remembers them all. Sarah watched in amazement as Shimmer greeted each baby individually, her harmonics perfectly tailored to each child's developmental level. The bond wasn't broken by sleep, it was strengthened. The matriarch moved closer to examine her grandchild, her ancient eyes bright with wonder. She has learned the small warm ones' patterns, incorporated their emotional songs into her own knowledge. This is evolution of harmony beyond our understanding. Dr. Martinez's voice crackled with excitement through the communicator. Amy, the readings are incredible. Not only is Alex completely healthy, but his neurological development shows enhancements we've never seen in human children. The other babies are showing similar improvements. As the days passed, it became clear that something extraordinary had emerged from their desperate experiment. The human babies and Shimmer had created a new form of communication that transcended traditional species barriers. They could share emotions, comfort each other across different biology, and learn from each other's perspectives. Emma, now walking confidently, would approach Shimmer and engage in complex harmonic conversations that lasted for hours. The baby dragon seemed to find these exchanges as fascinating as the human child did, often tilting her great head to better focus on Emma's small voice. "They're teaching each other," Amy observed as she documented the interactions. Emma is learning Titan wisdom and perspective, while Shimmer is discovering human creativity and emotional expression. The success led to an expansion of the program. Other families began bringing their children to participate in what had become known as the Harmony Project. The cavern was redesigned to accommodate more families while maintaining the delicate balance needed for continued development. Commander Parker, who had initially opposed the entire experiment, now admitted its value. "What you've created here goes beyond medical treatment," he told Amy during one of his visits. "These children are developing capabilities that could change how our species interact with others." The Titans shared their ancient knowledge freely, teaching human parents about bioharmonic principles and child development. The humans contributed their adaptability and innovation, creating new technologies that enhanced the natural processes. The collaboration grew into something neither species could have achieved alone. "This is future of both peoples," the matriarch declared as she watched human toddlers playing alongside her grandchild. "Young ones show way forward, Teach elders that difference brings strength rather than danger. Alex, now a healthy and extraordinarily gifted 2-year-old, had become something unique in human history. He could communicate equally well with humans and Titans, serving as a bridge between species. His medical crisis had been completely resolved, replaced by abilities that astounded researchers from across human space. The colony itself had transformed. Haven's Edge became the first official human-Titan cooperative settlement, with both species contributing to its growth and development. The mining operations were redesigned to work with Titan environmental management, creating a sustainable model for interspecies cooperation. Amy stood in the crystalline gardens that now surrounded the colony, watching Alex play with Shimmer under the alien sunset. The dragon had grown to the size of a small building, but remained as gentle as ever with her human friends. Their games involved complex harmonic exchanges that sounded like music from another dimension. We feared she might sleep while he was beside her, Amy told David as they watched the children play. We thought sleep meant absence, meant loss, but we learned that love doesn't sleep, that connection transcends consciousness. Dr. Foster's research had become the foundation for a new field of interspecies. Developmental psychology colonies throughout human space were requesting information about harmonic enhancement techniques. The children of Haven's Edge had become ambassadors for a future where species barriers meant opportunity rather than conflict. Sarah's son Tom, now 3, was teaching younger children how to produce their first Titan harmonics. The sight of human toddlers learning alien languages as naturally as they learned to walk represented hope for a galaxy where understanding replaced fear. The babies saved more than just themselves, Pete reflected as he watched his latest group of students, human children and young Titans learning together in the same space. They saved the idea that different species can be family. The matriarch often spoke of how the experiment had changed Titan understanding of other species. Small warm ones showed us that wisdom comes in many forms, that teaching flows both ways. Young ones always knew this truth. Elders needed reminding. As Alex grew older, his unique abilities continued to develop. He could translate not just between human and Titan languages, but between different ways of understanding the universe. His presence had made possible conversations between species that had never imagined they could communicate. Amy watched her son demonstrate a new harmonic pattern to a group of visiting researchers, his voice blending human emotional expression with Titan bioharmonic principles. The fear that had once gripped her heart had been replaced by pride in what her child had become. Mom, listen to this, Alex called to her in harmonics that carried joy and discovery. Shimmer taught me a song about growing stars, and I taught her one about human laughter. We made a new song together. The music that filled the cavern was unlike anything in either species' history, a fusion of human creativity and Titan wisdom that spoke to universal truths about friendship, growth, and the courage to trust across impossible differences. The story that had begun with desperate fear about a sleeping dragon had become the foundation for a new chapter in galactic history. The children of two species had shown their elders that love could overcome any barrier, and that the greatest discoveries often came from the willingness to take extraordinary risks for those we care about. In the crystalline chambers where it all began, human babies continued to learn Titan songs while young dragons discovered human laughter. The sound of their play echoed through the mountain, a promise that the galaxy held room for all forms of life to grow together in harmony.